Nail by Ian Jones and Andy Edwards. Episode 7, The Wedding. Saturday, April the 30th, 1938. It's the day of Howard and Edna's wedding. It's a slow start for last night's revelers who wake up in the pub. The wedding brings Maggie and Nail closer together, and Edna is true to form. I woke up on the floor of the ship inn. Oh, whiskey. God, my head is banging. Kipper is asleep on the floor next to me, and Merv is snoring in the snug. "Well, what time is it, Nail?" says Ernie from behind me. He's been sleeping on the bench. "I don't know," I say. "I can't see a clock from here." I pull myself up slowly and look over at the clock. It stopped permanently at 12, and Eddie has put a small sign underneath. No tick. "Clock's broken, man," I say, and slump back onto the floor. "It's light outside," says Ernie. "Is it?" I ask. My eyes are closed again. Nobody moves for another hour or so. I drift in and out of a light sleep, but it's too uncomfortable to really drop off properly. Eventually I drag myself up and go into the snug. Merv is sitting with elbows on a table, supporting his head with his hands. "God, Nail, I'm dying." "Me too, Merv," I say. "Don't think that scotch was a good idea." "Oh, I'd forgotten about that." Ernie comes and joins us. "My mouth tastes like dishwater," he says, "and the smell of stale smoke is making me heave." "I quite like it," says Merv. "Reminds me of the Navy." Ernie cuts him short. "Ach, he says. "Stinks like a brothel." Kipper is still asleep on the floor as Eddie comes down the stairs and into the snug. "Morning, troops," says Eddie. "Stand by your beds." He's as right as rain. "All ship shape and tickly-boo," he asks. Nobody replies. "Oh, dear, dear, dear," says Eddie. "Tell you what," he says. "I got just the thing to sort you sops out. Don't you move an inch now." None of us has any intention of moving anywhere. "How come he's not hungover?" says Merv quietly. "Dunno," says Ernie, and belches loudly. "Oh, God, I can taste that whiskey." "Oh, don't know," says Merv. Eddie reappears carrying a tray and puts it on the table. On the tray are 4 eggs, 4 tumblers and 4 bottles. Brandy, Worcestershire sauce, vinegar, and a small bottle called Tabasco sauce. "What the hell is that?" says Kipper as he comes and joins us around the table. "Prairie oyster," says Eddie proudly. "I seen it in the flicks on a film." He pours carefully from each bottle and then cracks a raw egg on top. "One each, boys. Down it in one." Merv is first to go. "Down the hatch," he says, and swigs back the cocktail. "Oh, tastes like an oyster," he announces. Kipper and I follow suit. It's not as bad as I'd feared it might be. "Go on then, Ernie," says Kipper. Ernie is grey, and there are beads of sweat running down from his forehead. He picks up the tumbler, sniffs the drink, then runs out the back and throws up in a bucket. "I'll have that then," says Merv, and polishes off Ernie's drink. "I'm off," says Ernie, when he returns from washing out the bucket. "I'm going back to bed." Good idea, says Kipper, and they both head out into the morning. Nearly 7 o'clock, says Eddie. Best start clearing this place up, I suppose. We talk quietly in the snug while Eddie tidies the bar. There's a knock on the door of the pub. But not just any knock. It's the secret knock. The knock that gets you into the pub outside licensing hours. Who the hell is that now, says Eddie. Have a look, will you, Nail? I pull the curtain and peer at the two well-dressed men standing in the square. Strangers, I say. Oh, let them in, I suppose, says Eddie. I open the door. Friend or foe? I ask. Can we get a drink? Asks one in a strong Cardiff accent. Aye, says Eddie. Pull the bolt, Nail. The two men stand at the bar and we join them. Come far? Asks Merv. Cardiff, one of them replies. Lovely part of the world, says Merv approvingly. Can I ask you something, says Eddie. Ask away. I'm just wondering how you knew you could get a drink in here at 7 o'clock in the morning, and how you know our special knock. Well, says one, we were in Brine Wine last night and we asked a policeman where we could get a drink at this time of the day in Pontero, and he told us to come here and give us the secret knock to use. Well, bloody Irish book and pencil, says Eddie, and we all laugh. We share a couple of pints with the Cardiff visitors. Turns out they're cousins of Edna's come for the wedding. 4th time we've been to send her off, one says. 4th, says Merv. Thought it was the 3rd. No, she was married very young before she left Cardiff. Never knew that, says Merv. Tragic, really, he died in his sleep. Poor bugger, says Merv. We leave Edna's cousins in the ship with Eddie and go our separate ways. See you in the church about 1:30, says Merv. Good, I say, and much off home to get ready. Howard limps down the aisle and sits at the front of the church. 25 minutes early, teases Nobby from the pew behind him. I'd have been half hour early if Briggs hadn't made such a potch of my shoes, replies Howard. Killing me they are. He's bloody useless. Mr. Briggs is sitting 2 rows behind. He hears but doesn't say anything. He pretends to read the hymnal. It's a long wait for Edna. Not too late to change your mind, says Nobby. Shut up, man, Norbert, says Howard. I'm nervous enough as it is. Just saying, says Nobby. My car's outside if you get cold feet. Bloody blistered feet. I got in his shoes, not cold feet. Mr. Briggs lowers his head and reads another hymn. The service is short. Edna didn't want too much fuss. I laughed when the Reverend Penderyn James asked Howard, Do you take this woman? Yes, he does, said Edna. That's right, said Howard. Yes, he does. I mean, yes, I do. Oh. Margaret nudged me in the ribs. Hush, Hobart, she whispered gently, and then giggled herself. She looks a lovely sight in that dress today. Aye, pretty as a picture. The reception is in the church hall. No alcohol. Edna has banned it. Sobriety is next to godliness, she said, says Howard. I thought cleanliness was next to godliness, says Merv. If Edna says it's sobriety, says Howard, then sobriety it is. Merv and I exchange a glance. We're standing outside in a small circle having a smoke. Me, Nobby, Ernie, Eddie, Kipper and Howard. I'm not having one. I don't smoke, but I like to socialise. It's good to have friends, says Howard. People you can trust, you know, confide in. And we all agree. Why didn't you have a best man, Howard? Asks Ernie. Oh, Edna said there was no need. Didn't want me getting led astray. Strange, when she produced the rings from her handbag, says Merv. I nearly laughed out loud. Edna didn't trust anyone else, Howard replies defensively. He pulls hard on a woodbine. He's enjoying his cigarette. And as he blows out a perfectly formed smoke ring, he suddenly lets out a cry and sinks to his knees. Oh! We watch in amazement. Edna is standing behind him, pointing as he grovels on his knees. I told you not to smoke, she says. It stinks. And she blusters back into the hall. Bloody hell, are you okay? Says Nobby. Right in the kidneys, Howard moans. Oh, that's out of order, says Merv. Oh, no, Howard groans. She's right, I did promise. Forgot, just forgot. Nobby helps him to his feet. I'm all right, he says. Think I'll go inside for a bit, and he walks tentatively into the hall. That is not cricket, says Eddie. Poor bloke, says Nobby. She's a right tartar. They finish their smoke, and we go back in. Shortly afterwards, we sit down to a meal of pasty, potatoes, boiled cabbage, and some gravy. Very nice too. Mrs. Prothero and Mrs. Price, the Black Widows, never fail to serve up a treat. Fair play to them. I sit with Margaret. She touches my knee under the table. I look at her. She smiles. Long time since someone has smiled at me like that. A long time. Edna's cousin Byron says a few words, and people start to drift off soon after the meal is over. Not much to stay for, really. I'm sitting with Merv on the edge of the stage at the far end of the hall, drinking tea we are. Merv pours a tot of rum into each cup as Bryn and Glass appears at the door. He catches my eye and walks quickly through the hall. How's your brother? I ask. Oh, he's come round, Nail, thank God. Thought we were going to lose him for a while. Oh, brilliant news, I reply. Here, says Merv, have a tot. He passes Bryn the bottle and Bryn empties it in one huge mouthful. Thanks, Merv, needed that, he says, and hands back the bottle. Merv looks despairingly at the empty bottle. You're welcome, shipmate, he says sarcastically. Do you know, says Bryn, that gypsy turned up at the hospital last night on his horse, sat with Gwyn for over an hour, held his hand and said some prayers. No idea how he knew Gwyn was there. Left a bit of heather by the side of the bed. Nice touch, to be fair to him. And we all agree. They're not all bad, those gyppos, I say. No, agrees Bryn. He looks about. Where's Howard then? Oh, gone home, answers Merv. Edna said she'd seen enough of him for one day and sent him packing. Poor bugger, says Bryn. Tell you what now. Let's grab a bottle or two from Eddie and go round and sit with him, eh? Good idea, Bryn, I say. I say good day to Margaret as we leave. Will I see you for tea tomorrow, she asks. Oh, I'd like that, I say, and squeeze her hand. Sunday tomorrow. I think perhaps I'll have my bath in the morning. We gather a few of the boys together and head off to sit with Howard. Gotta stick together, boys, says Nobby as we walk past the oak tree. Look after your own, Merv adds. Watch out for each other, like, says Eddie. Ernie nods approvingly. Aye, that's right. Look after your own, stick together, watch out for each other. Eddie pops into the ship to pick up a few bottles and we make our way to Howard's cottage. I knock at the door, Howard opens it and smiles. Hello, boys, he says. I knew you'd come to my rescue.